Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Magnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapatakalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyvari Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Ridyandastoya Bhadrani Vidunuti Suhritsatam Nastaprayeshva Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Before reciting the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. So today we start the chapter 26. Who would like to read first?
Okay. I can start.
Yes, Rishikesh Prabhu, you need to increase your volume to present for like little bit.
I can start.
Yes, Prabhu, now it's good.
Chapter 26 Fundamental Principles of. You can scroll up to Material Nature. Text 1 Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atha te sampravakshami tattvanam lakshanam prathak yadviditva vimuccheta purusha prakriter gune. Synonyms Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the personality of God had said, Atha now, te you, Sampravakshami, I shall describe, Tattvanam, of the categories of the absolute truth, Lakshanam, the distinctive features, Prathak, one by one, yet which Viditva, knowing, Vimuccheta, one can be released, Purusha, any person, Prakrite, of the material nature, Gunai, from the modes. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation The personality of Godhead, Kapila continued, My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of modes of material nature. Purport As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, only through devotional service. Bhaktya Mama Vijanati. As stated in the Bhagavatam, the object of devotional service is Mam, Krishna, And as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form, with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions, and his incarnations. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Krishna. Sankhya philosophy is especially meant for persons who are conducted by this material world. It is generally understood by the Parampara system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now, the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. The same assertion is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Tato mam tatvato gyatva. By understanding the Lord according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is also explained here. By understanding the science of devotional service in Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The eternal self, after becoming freed from the spell of material nature, becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. As long as one has even slight desire to enjoy or lord it over the material nature, there is no chance of his being freed from the influence of nature's material modes. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically, as explained in the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapiladev. Text 2. Jnanam nishrayasya sarthaya purushyaatma darshanam yad ahur varnayet tatte hridaya granthi vedanam jnanam knowledge nishrayasa arthaya for the ultimate perfection purushasya of a man atmadarshanam self-realization yet which who they said varnaye I shall explain that they to you hridaya in the heart granthi the knots vedanam cuts translation knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which knots of attachment to material world are cut. Purpose. It is said by the proper understanding of the pure self or by self realization, one can be freed from material attachment. Knowledge leads one to attain ultimate perfection of life and to see oneself as he is. The Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3.8 also confirms this. Tam eva viditva mrityumeti. Simply by understanding one's spiritual position or by seeing oneself as he is, one can be freed from material entanglement. In various ways, the seeing of oneself is described in the Vedic literatures as it is confirmed in the Bhagavatam, Purushasya Atmadarshanam, that one has to see oneself and know what he is. As Kapiladev explains to his mother, this seeing can be done by the hearing from the proper authoritative source. Kapiladev is the greatest authority because he is the personality of Godhead. And if someone accepts whatever is explained as it is without interpretation, then he can see himself. Lord Chaitanya explained to Sanatan Goswami the real constitutional position of the individual. He said directly that each and every individual soul is eternally a servitor of Krishna. Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Every individual soul is eternal servitor. When one is fixed in the understanding that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and that his eternal position is to serve in association with the Supreme Lord, he becomes self realized. This position of understanding oneself brightly cuts the knot of material attraction. Hridaya Granthi the Vedanam. Due to false ego or false identification of oneself with the body and the material world, one is entrapped by Maya. But as soon as one understands that he is qualitatively the same substance as the Supreme Lord, because he belongs to the same category of spirit soul, and that his perpetual position is to serve. This is Atma Darshanam and Hridaya Granthi Vedanam, self realization. When one can cut the knot of attachment to the material world, his understanding is called knowledge. Atma Darshanam means to see oneself by knowledge. Therefore, when one is freed from the false ego by the cultivation of real knowledge, he sees himself that is ultimate necessity of human life. The soul is thus isolated from the entanglement of 24 categories of material nature. pursuit of systematic philosophy process called Samkhya is called knowledge and self revelation. Text 3. Anadir Atma Purusho Nirguna Prakrite Para Pratyek Dharma Swayam Jyotir Vishwam Yena Samanvitam Anadi, without a beginning, Atma, the Supreme Soul, Purusha, the personality of Godhead, Nirguna, transcendental to the material modes of nature, Prakriti Para, beyond this material world, Pratyak Dhama, perceivable everywhere, Swayam Jyoti, self effulgent, Vishwam, the entire creation, Yena, by whom Samanvitam is maintained. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul, and He has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and is beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because He is self effulgent, and His self effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as being without beginning. He is the Purusha, the Supreme Spirit. Purusha means person. When we think of a person in our present experience, that person has a beginning. This means that he has taken birth and that there is a history from the beginning of his life. But the Lord is particularly mentioned here as Anadi, beginningless. If we examine all persons, we will find that everyone has a beginning. But when we approach a person who has no beginning, he is the supreme person. That is the definition given in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna. The supreme personality of Godhead is Krishna, the supreme controller. He is without beginning and he is the beginning of everyone. The- this definition is found in all Vedic literatures. The Lord is described as the spirit soul, the soul or spirit. What is the definition of spirit? Spirit is perceivable everywhere. Brahman means great. His greatness is perceived everywhere. And what is that greatness? Consciousness. We have personal experience of consciousness, or it is spread all over the body. In every hair follicle of our body, we can feel consciousness. This is individual consciousness. Similarly, there is super consciousness. The example can be given of a small light and the sunlight. The sunlight is perceived everywhere, even within the room or in the sky. But the small light is experienced within a specific limit. Similarly, our consciousness is perceived within the limit of a particular body, but the super consciousness or the existence of God is perceived everywhere. He is present everywhere by his energy. It is stated in the Vishnu Puran that whatever we find anywhere and everywhere is the distribution of the energy of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also, it is confirmed that the Lord is all pervading and exists everywhere by his two kinds of energies, one spiritual and the other material. And both the spiritual and material energies are spread everywhere. And that is the proof of existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The existence of consciousness everywhere is not temporary. It is without beginning. And because it is without beginning, it is also without end. The theory that consciousness develops at a certain stage of material combination is not accepted herein. For the consciousness which exists everywhere is said to be without beginning. The materialistic or atheistic theory stating that there is no soul, that there is no God, and that consciousness is the result of a combination of matter and is not acceptable. Matter is not beginningless, it has a beginning, and this material body has a beginning. So the universal body does also. And as our material body has begun on the basis of our soul, similarly, the entire gigantic universal body has begun on the basis of the Supreme Soul. The Vedanta Sutra says, Janmadhyasya, this entire material exhibition is its creation, its growth, its maintenance, and its dissolution is an emanation from the Supreme Person. In the Bhagavad Gita, also, the Lord says, I am the beginning and the source of birth of everything. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here. He is not a temporary person, nor does he have a beginning. He is without a cause, and he is the cause of all causes. Paraha means transcendental, beyond the creative energy. The Lord is the creator of the creative energy. We can see that there is a creative energy in the material world, but He is not under this energy. He is Prakriti Param, beyond this energy. He is not subject to the threefold miseries created by material energy because He is beyond it. The modes of material nature do not touch Him. It is explained here, Swayam Jyoti, he is light himself. We have experience in the material world of one's light being a reflection of another, just as moonlight is a reflection of the sunlight. Sunlight is also the reflection of the Brahmajyoti. Similarly, Brahmajyoti, the spiritual effulgence, is a reflection of the body from the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Yasya Prabhavata, the Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence is due to his bodily luster. Therefore, it is said here, Swayam Jyoti. He himself is light. His light is distributed in different ways, as the Brahma Jyoti, as sunlight, and as moonlight. Bhagavad Gita also confirms that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunlight, moonlight, or electricity. The Upanishads also confirms this because the bodily luster of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is sufficient to illuminate the spiritual world. There is no need of sunlight, moonlight, or any other light or electricity. The self illumination is also contradicts the theory that the spirit soul or the spiritual consciousness develops at a certain point in material combination. The term Swayam Jyoti indicates that there is no tinge of any material or any material reaction anything material or any material reaction. It is confirmed here that the concept of the Lord, all pervasiveness, is due to his illumination everywhere. We have experienced that the sun is situated in one place, but the sunlight is diffused all around for millions and millions of miles. That is our practical experience. Similarly, although the Supreme Light is situated in his personal abode, Vaikuntha or Vrindavan, his light is diffused not only in the spiritual world but beyond that. In the material world also, that light is reflected to the sun globe, and the sunlight is reflected by the moon globe. Thus, although he is situated in his own abode, his light is distributed all over the spiritual and material worlds. The Brahma Samhita confirms this. Brahma Samhita 5.37 Goloka eva nivasatya akhila bhuta. He is living in Goloka, but still he is present all over the creation. He is the super soul of everything, the supreme personality of Godhead, and he has innumerable transcendental qualities. It is also concluded that although uh, he is undoubtedly a person, he is not Purusha of this material world. Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand that beyond this material world there can be a person. Therefore, they are impersonalists. But it is explained very nicely here that the personality of Godhead is beyond material existence. Text 4. So, Esha Prakritim Sukshmam Devim Gunamayim Vibhu Yatraya Yaivogatam Abhyapadyatya Leelaya Sa Esha, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prakritim material energy, Sukshmam subtle, Daivam related to Vishnu, Gunamayim invested with the three modes of material nature, Vibhu, the greatest of the great, Yadshaya, of his own will, Eva quite, Upagatam obtained, Abhyapadyate he accepted, Leelaya as his pastime. Translation As his pastime, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with three modes of material nature and which is related with Vishnu. Purport. In this verse, the word Gunamayim is very significant. Daivim means the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Gunamayim means invested with the three modes of material nature. When the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, this Gunamayim energy acts as a manifestation of the energies of the three modes. It acts as a covering. The energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in two ways as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the whole world is illusioned by the three modes of material nature, and thus the common conditioned soul, being covered by such energy, cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden, there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy, but to the ordinary common man, in the conditioned state, it is a covering of the eyes. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud, only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. Similarly, although Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord who is beyond Maya, the material energy covers the ordinary living entities. Those conditioned souls who are covered are individual living entities, and he from whose energy Maya is created is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another place, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in the first canto, seventh chapter, it is stated that by his spiritual vision, Vyasdev saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. This indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of sun. Darkness can cover a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore called Vibhu. As the appearance of a cloud is accepted by the sun, so the appearance of the material energy at a certain level interval is accepted by the Lord. Although his material energy is utilized to create the material world, this does not mean that he is covered by that energy. Those who are covered by the material energy are called conditioned souls. The Lord accepts the material energy for his material pastimes in creation, manifestation, and maintenance and dissolution. But the conditioned soul is covered. He cannot understand that beyond this material energy there is Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. Just as a less intelligent person cannot understand that beyond the covering of the clouds there is bright sunshine. Text 5. गुणैर्विचित्रा सृजातिं स्वरूपा प्रकृतिं तथा विलोक्य मुमुहे सत्य स इह ज्ञानगुह्य गुह्य गुणैः. By the threefold modes, vichitra, variegated, srijatim, creating, sarupa, which forms prakriti, material nature, praja, living entities, vilokya, having seen, mumuhe, was illusion, satya, at once, the living entity, iha, in this world, janagunaya, guna, kuhaya, by the knowledge covering feature. Translation divided into varieties by are threefold modes. Material nature creates the form of the living entities, and the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusory energy. Purport. Material energy has the power to cover knowledge, but this covering cannot be applied to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is applicable only to the praja, or for those who are born with material bodies, the conditioned souls. The different kinds of living entities vary according to the modes of material nature. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literature, in the Bhagavad Gita 7.12, it is very nicely explained that although the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are born of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not subject to them. In other words, the energy emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot act on him. It acts on the conditioned souls who are covered by the material energy. The Lord is the Father of all living entities because he impregnates the material energy with the conditioned souls. Therefore, the conditioned souls get bodies created by material energy, whereas the you can scroll down to father of the living entities is aloof from the three modes. It is stated in the previous verse that the material energy was accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order that he might exhibit pastimes for the living entities who wanted to enjoy and lord it over material energy. This world was created through the material energy of the Lord for the so-called enjoyment of such living entities. Why this material world was created was for the created why this material world was created for the sufferings of the conditioned souls is a very intricate question. There is a hint here in the word Leela, which means for the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord wants to rectify the enjoying temperament of the conditioned souls. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that no one is the enjoyer but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This material energy is created, therefore, for anyone who pretends to enjoy. An example can be cited here that there is no necessity for the government's creation of a separate police department, but because it is a fact that some of the citizens will not accept the state laws, a department to deal with criminals is necessary. There is no necessity, but at the time there is necessity. Similarly, there was no necessity to create this material world for the sufferings of the conditioned souls, but at the same time there are certain living entities known as Nityavadda who are eternally conditioned. We can see that they have been conditioned from time immemorial because no one can trace out when the living entity, the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, became rebellious against the supremacy of the Lord. It is a fact that there are two classes of men those who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Lord and those who are atheists or agnostics who do not accept the existence of God and who want to create their own laws. They want to establish that everyone can create his own laws or or his own religious path. Without tracing out the beginning of the existence of these two classes, we can take it for granted that some of the living entities revolted against the laws of the Lord. Such entities are called conditioned souls, for they are conditioned by the modes of material nature. Therefore, the words Gunair Vichitra are used here. In this material world, there are 8, 8.4 million species of life. These as spirit souls, they are all transcendental to this material world. Why then they do not? Why then do they exhibit themselves in different stages of life? The answer is given here. They are under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because they were created by the material energy, their bodies are made of material elements. Covered by the material body, the spiritual identity is lost, and therefore the word momohe is used here, indicating that they have forgotten their own spiritual identity. The forgetfulness of the spiritual identity is present in the jivas, the conditioned souls who are subject to be covered by the energy of the material nature. Jnana Guhya is another word used. Guha means covering because the knowledge of the minute conditioned souls is covered. They are exhibited in so many species of life. It is said in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 7th chapter, 1st canto, the living entities are illusioned by the material energy. In the Vedas also it is stated that eternal living entities are covered by different modes and that they are called tricolored, red, white, and blue living entities. Red is the representation of the mode of passion, white is the representation of the mode of goodness, and blue is the representation of the mode of ignorance. These modes of material nature belong to the material energy, and therefore the living entities under these modes, under these different modes, are of material nature of different kinds of material bodies because they are forgetful of the spiritual identities. They think that the material bodies to be themselves. The conditioned soul, me means the material body. This is called Mohan or bewilderment. It is repeatedly said in the Katha that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never affected by the influence of material nature. It is rather the conditioned souls or the minute infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme who are affected by the influence of material nature and who appear in different bodies under the material body. Thank you, Guru. Somebody wants to continue?
Thank you, Prabhu. Before we move on, let me check with one Mataji who has joined us now with the name Karnalila Devi Mataji. Mataji, do you think that you have joined in a wrong group? Maybe wrong
Oh, I think people
session?
join through the Q&A session link.
Oh, okay. It's the same link. Okay, okay.
Yes, Prabhu, it's the same link.
Okay, okay. So Mataji, this is not a Q&A session with His Grace Sundaragopal Prabhu. That session was already done almost an hour ago. So this is completely for Prabhuji. So would you
Okay.
mind? Would you mind?
Yeah, I'll leave
Yeah.
the session. Thank you very much, though.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Mataji.
Prabhu. Haribol.
Thank you. Thank you.
Haribol.
Very
Hare
good.
Krishna.
Very good. Okay,
Prabhu,
fine. Thanks.
my reading was too fast.
No, it's not. It's not too fast, but your voice is too low. Okay, I'm not sure whether there is any issue with your gadget uh, right now. Maybe particularly with your microphone. Okay, this
Yes,
is
Prabhu.
this is a regular issue on a daily basis. Your voice always remains pretty low. I hope my voice is a bit louder than yours.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
Are we
fine.
6?
Is there anyone to start reading from text 6, or do you want me to take it up? Hmm. That's okay. I can take it up. That's okay. Yeah, text 6. Okay,
You
Canto
can,
3.
Prabhu, you can do the
I can
scroll.
scroll. I can scroll down as well. No problem.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Canto 3, chapter 26, text 6. एवं पराभि ध्यानेन कर्तृत्वं प्रकृतेः पुमान् कर्मसु क्रियमाणेषु गुणैरात्मनि मन्यते. Synonyms. Evam, in this way, para, other, abhidya, nena, by identification, kartrutvam, the doing of activities, prakrite, of the material nature, puman, I don't have control yet. Yeah, puman, the living entity, karmasu, kriya, neshu. While the activities are being performed, gunaihi, by the three modes, atmani, to himself, manyate, he considers. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Due to his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus, acquitted, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. Mhm. Yeah, purport. The forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of disease and has become mad, or to a mad haunted by ghosts who acts without control and yet thinks himself to be in control. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned soul becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of the material energy is accepted by the conditioned soul as self-acquitted. Actually, the soul in his pure state of existence should be in Krishna consciousness. When a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be acting in material consciousness. Consciousness cannot be killed because the symptom of the living entity is consciousness. The material consciousness simply has to be purified. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna or the Supreme Lord as master and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Okay. This is our current situation. Text 7. Tadasya संश्रितिर्बन्धः पारतन्त्र्यं च तत्कृतं भवत्य कर्तुर् ईशस्यां साक्षिणो निर्वृतात्मनः. Synonyms that from the misconception asya of the conditioned soul, samshritam tihi, conditioned life, bandha, bondage, para tantriyam, dependence, cha, and tat kritam, made by that bhavati is akartuhu of the non-doer, ishasya, independent, sakshinaha, the witness, nivrita atmanaha, joyful by nature. Translation. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditional life. Conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although he does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, the spirit soul is thus affected by conditional life. Quote. The Mayavadi philosopher, who does not differentiate between the supreme spirit and the individual spirit, says that the conditional existence of the living entity is his leela or pastime. Conditional existence of the living entity, okay, or pastime. But the word pastime implies employment in the activities of the Lord. The Mayavadis misuse the word and say that even if the living entity has become a stool-eating hog, he is also enjoying his pastimes. This is the most dangerous interpretation. Actually, the Supreme Lord is the leader and maintainer of all living entities. His pastimes are transcendental to any material activity. Such activities of the Lord cannot be dragged to the level of the conditional activities of the living entities. In conditional life, the living entity actually remains as if a captive in the hands of material energy. Whatever the material energy dictates, the conditioned soul does. He has no responsibility. He is simply the witness of the action, but he is forced to act in that way due to his offense in his eternal relationship with Krishna. Lord Krishna therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that Maya, his material energy, is so forceful that it is insurmountable. But if a living entity simply understands that his conditional position is to serve Krishna and he tries to act on this principle, then however conditioned he may be, the influence of Maya immediately vanishes. This is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Krishna takes charge of anyone who surrenders to him in helplessness, and thus the influence of Maya or conditional life is removed. The spirit soul is actually Satchidananda, eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. Under the clutches of Maya, however, he suffers from continued birth, death, disease, and old age. One has to be serious to cure this condition of material existence and transfer himself to Krishna consciousness. For thus, his long suffering may be mitigated without difficulty. In summary, the suffering of the conditioned soul is due to his attachment to material nature. This attachment should thus be transferred from matter to Krishna. Text 8. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे कारणं प्रकृतिं विदुः भोक्तृत्वे सुख दुःखानां पुरुषं प्रकृतेः परम्. Synonyms: karya, the body; karana, the senses; kartrutve, regarding the demigods; karanam, the cause; prakritim, material nature; viduhu, the learned understand; bhoktrutve, regarding the perception; sukha, of happiness; dukkhanam, and of distress; purusham, the spirit soul; prakritehe, to material nature; param, transcendental. Translation: the cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. That is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Purport: in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that when the Lord descends to this material world, he comes as a person by his own energy, Atma Maya. He is not forced by any superior energy. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastime or Leela. But here it is clearly stated that the conditioned soul is forced to take a certain type of body and senses under the three modes of material nature. That body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, a conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. But when there are bodily reactions as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. If he so desires, the spirit soul can change this conditional life of dualities by choosing to serve Krishna. The living entity is the cause of all. The living entity is the cause of all of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness when he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness. And a suitable body is offered to him by the eternal potency or spiritual energy of the Lord. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. Thus, it is his free choice to accept a spiritual body or a material body. But once the body is accepted, he has to enjoy or suffer the consequences. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that the living entity enjoys his pastimes by accepting the body of a hog. This theory is not acceptable. However, because the word pastime implies voluntary acceptance for enjoyment, therefore, this interpretation is most misleading. When there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. The Lord's pastimes and the conditioned living entities' acceptance of karmic reaction are not on the same level. Text 9. देवहूतिरुवाच प्रकृते पुरुषस्यापि लक्षणं पुरुषोत्तम ब्रूहि कारणयोरस्य सदसच्च यत् आत्मकं synonyms. Devahuti Uvacha, Devahuti said the Prakriti of his energies, Purushasya of the Supreme Person, Api also Lakshanam, characteristics, Purusha Uttamam, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bruhi, kindly explain Karana Yoho, causes Asya of this creation, Sat, Asat, manifest and unmanifest, Cha, and Translation: Devahuti said, "O Supreme Personality of Godhead, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person as an energies, because both of these are the causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation." Okay, characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energies. Okay, purport: Prakriti or material energy is connected with both the Supreme Lord and the living entities, just as a woman is connected with her husband as a wife and with her children as a mother. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he impregnated Mother Nature with children, living entities, and thereafter all species of living entities become manifest. The relationship of the living entities with material nature has been explained. Now, an understanding of the relationship between material nature and the Supreme Lord is sought by Devahuti. The product of that relationship is stated to be the manifest and unmanifest material world. The unmanifest material world is the subtle Mahat and from the Mahat the material manifestation has emerged. In the Vedic literatures, it is stated that by the glance of the Supreme Lord, the total material energy is impregnated, and then everything is born of material nature. It is also confirmed in the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that under his glance, Adhyakshena, under his direction and by his will, nature is working. It is not that nature works blindly. After understanding the position of the conditioned souls in relation to material nature, Devahuti wanted to know how nature works under the direction of the Lord and what the relationship is between the material nature and the Lord. In other words, she wanted to learn the characteristics of the Supreme Lord in relation to the material nature. The relationship of the living entities with matter and that of the Supreme Lord with matter are certainly not on the same level, although the Mayavadis may interpret it in that way. When it is said that the living entities are bewildered, the Mayavadi philosophers ascribe this bewilderment to the Supreme Lord. But that is not applicable. The Lord is never bewildered. That is the difference between personalities and impersonalities. Devahuti is not unintelligent. She has enough intelligence to understand that the living entities are not on the level of Supreme Lord. Because the living entities are minute and infinitesimal, they become bewildered or conditioned by material nature. But this does not mean that the Supreme Lord is also conditioned or bewildered. The difference between the conditioned soul and the Lord is that the Lord is the Lord, the master of the material nature, and he is therefore not subject to its control. He is controlled neither by spiritual nature nor by material nature. He is the supreme controller himself, and he cannot be compared to the ordinary living entities who are controlled by the laws of material nature. Two words used in this verse are Sat and Asat. The cosmic manifestation is Asat. It doesn't exist, but the material energy of the Supreme Lord is Sat, or ever existing. Material nature is ever existing in its subtle form as the energy of the Lord, but it sometimes manifests this non-existent or temporarily existent nature, the cosmos. An analogy may be made with the father and mother. The mother and the father exist, but sometimes the mother begets children. Similarly, this cosmic manifestation, which comes from the unmanifest material nature of the Supreme Lord, sometimes appears and again disappears. But the material nature is ever existing, and the Lord is the supreme cause for both the subtle and gross manifestations of this material nature. Now, what is the difference between cosmic manifestation and the material energy of the Lord? Oh, energy. Okay. Fine. Oh, material energy always exists. Okay. Depending on the Supreme's will, the cosmic creation will emerge. Okay. Fine. Text 10. श्रीभगवानुवाच यत्तत् त्रिगुणम् अव्यक्तं नित्यं सदसद् आत्मकं प्रधानं प्रकृतिं प्राहुर् अविशेषं विशेषवत् Surname Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Yat, now further, that Trigunam, combination of the three modes, Avyaktam, unmanifested, Nityam, eternal, Sadasat, Atmakam, consisting of cause and effect, Pradhanam, the Pradhana, Prakritim, Prakriti, Prahu, they called, Avishesham, undifferentiated, Visheshavat, possessing differentiation. Translation: the Supreme Personality of God has said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called Pradhana. It is called Prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence. Purport. The Lord points out material nature in its subtle stage, which is called pradhana, and he analyzes this pradhana. The explanation of pradhana and prakriti is that pradhana is the subtle, undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. Although they are undifferentiated, one can understand that the total material elements are conditioned therein. When the total material elements are manifested by the interaction of the three modes of material nature, the manifestation is called prakriti. Impersonalists say that Brahman is without variegatedness and without differentiation. One may say that Pradhana is the Brahman stage, but actually the Brahman stage is not Pradhana. Pradhana is distinct from Brahman because in Brahman there is no existence of the material modes of nature. One may argue that the Mahatattva is also different from Pradhana because in the Mahatattva there are manifestations. The actual explanation of Pradhana, however, is given here. When the cause and effect are not clearly manifested, avyaktam, the reaction of the total elements does not take place, and that is called Pradhana. Pradhana is not the time element because in the time element there are actions and reactions, creation and annihilation, nor is it the jiva or marginal potency of living entities are designated. Conditional living entities because the designations of the living entities are not eternal. One adjective used in this connection is nitya, which indicates eternality. Therefore, the condition of material nature immediately previous to its manifestation is called pradhana. Okay. So prakriti in its previous stage is pradhana. In simple words. Text 11. Panchabhihi panchabhir brahma chaturbhi dashabhis tatha etat vimsatikam ganam pradhanikam viduhu. Synonyms. Panchabhihi with the 5 gross elements. Panchabhihi, the 5 subtle elements. Brahman. Chaturbhihi, the 4 internal senses. Dashabhihi, the 5 senses for gathering knowledge and 5 organs of action. Tatha, in that way, etat, this Vimshatikam, consisting of 24 elements. Ganam, aggregate, pradhanikam, comprising the pradhana, viduhu, they know. Translation. The aggregate elements, namely the 5 gross elements, the 5 subtle elements, the 4 internal senses, the 5 senses for gathering knowledge, and 5 outward organs of action are known as the pradhana. 5, 5, 10, 14, 14, 5, 19, and plus 9, plus 5, 24. Okay. Purport. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the sum total of the 24 elements described herein is called the Yonir Mahat Brahman. Yonir Mahat Brahma. The sum total of the living entities is impregnated in this Yonir Mahat Brahma, and they are born in different forms, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other Vedic literatures, the sum total of the 24 elements, Pradhana, is also described as Yonir Mahat Brahma. It is the source of the birth and subsistence of all living entities. Text 12. Mahabhutani panchaiva bhur-apognir-marun nabhaha tanmatrani cha tavanti gandhadini matani me. Synonyms. Mahabhutani, the gross elements. Pancha, 5. Eva, exactly. Bhuh, earth, Apaha, water, Agnihi, fire, Marut, air, Navaha, ether, Tanmatrani, the subtle elements, Cha, also, Tavanti, so many, Gandha, Adini, smell and so on, taste, color, touch and sound, Matani, considered, may, by me. Translation: there are 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also 5 subtle elements: smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. Text 13. Indriyani dasha srotram tvagdrukrasana nashikaha karau charanau medhram payurdashama Uchyate synonyms: Indriyani, the senses; Dasha, 10; Srotram, the senses of hearing; Tvak, the sense of touch; Drik, the sense of sight; Rasana, the sense of taste; Nashikaha, the sense of smell; Vak, the organ of speech; Karau, 2 hands; Charanau, the organs for traveling; legs; Medram, the generative organ; Payuhu, the evacuating organ; Dashamaha, the 10th; Uchyate is called. Translation: the senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action, number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the active organ for speaking, the active organs for working, and those for traveling, generating, and evacuating. Text 14. मनोबुद्धिर अहंकारस्य चित्तम इत्यन्तरात्मकम् चतुर्धा लक्ष्यते भेदो वृत्त्या लक्षण रूपया synonyms मनः the mind buddhi intelligence ahankarah ego chittam consciousness iti thus antaratmakam the internal subtle senses chatuh dha having 4 aspects lakshyate is observed bhedah the distinction vritya by their functions lakshana rupaya representing different characteristics. Translation: the internal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by different functions since they represent different characteristics. Purport: the 4 internal senses or subtle senses described herein are defined by different characteristics. When pure consciousness is polluted by material contamination and identification with the body becomes prominent, this is called false ego. Consciousness is the function of the soul, and therefore behind consciousness there is soul. When consciousness is polluted by material contamination, this is called ahankara. Text 15. Etavan eva sankhyato brahmanah sagunasya सन्निवेशो मया प्रोक्तो यः कालः पञ्चविंशकः synonyms एतावान् so much eva thus sankhyayaatah enumerated brahmanah of brahman sagunasya with sagunasya with material qualities indeed सन्निवेशः arrangement मया by me प्रोक्तः spoken यः which कालः time पञ्चविंशकः the 25th. Translation: all these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as the 25th element. Okay. Purport. According to the Vedic version, there is no existence beyond Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Chandogyopanishad 3:14:1. It is stated also in the Vishnu Purana that whatever we see is Parasya Brahmana Shaktihi. Everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Brahman. When Brahman is mixed with the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, there results the material expansion, which is sometimes called Saguna, Saguna Brahman, and which consists of these 25 elements. In the Nirguna Brahman, where there is no material contamination, or in the spiritual world, the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are not present. Where Nirguna Brahman is found, simple, unalloyed goodness prevails. Saguna Brahman is described by the Sankhya system of the philosophy as consisting of 25 elements, including the time factor, past, present, and future.
Haribol. Should we read one more?
Yes. I will just give a pause because I just try to understand what I have read.
Yes, Prabhu.
25th element is the time, Prabhu, which exists only in the spiritual world. There is no time factor at all which exists in the material world. There is no time factor at all in the spiritual world. That's the reason why the 25th element is absent in the spiritual world.
Yes, Prabhu.
Ashtadha Prakriti, eightfold. One second, I'm opening up my chat. Okay, Ashtadha Prakriti, eightfold material nature: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Yes. Yes, true, Prabhu. Pranjal Prabhu, that's true. But there are other additional parameters as well, which comes out to be totally 25, including time. Okay, if you go up, Prabhu, just go up, Prabhu. Along with these Pancha Bhutas, okay, these are called Pancha Bhutas: earth, water, fire, air.
Yes, Prabhu. There's the five senses, five other senses.
Right. Yeah. Auditory sense, ear. The sense of taste, tongue. The tactical sense, what is it? Skin, or is it skin? Maybe.
Yes,
The
Prabhu.
sense of sight, eye. Yeah. The sense of sight is eye. The sense of smell is nose. The active organ for speaking is mouth. The active organ for working is hands, legs, and all those are counted as well here. Five gross elements, five subtle elements. Okay, mind, intelligence, false ego, and time. Is it clear, Prabhu? Pranjal Prabhu? Is there anything? Okay. Text 16. प्रभावं पौरुषं प्राहुः कालं एके यतो भयम् अहङ्कारविमूढ्यस्य कर्तुः प्रकृतिम् ईयुषः synonyms prabhavam the influence paurusham of the supreme personality of godhead prahu they have said kalam the time factor eke some yataha from which bhayam fear ahankara vimudhyasya deluded by false ego kartuhu of the individual soul prakritim material nature iyushaha having contacted. Translation: the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded souls who has contacted material nature. Purport: the living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Everyone is afraid of death. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul. But due to our absorption in the identification of body as self, the fear of death develops. It is also stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11 to 34, Bhayam Ditiyabhineveshatah Syat. Ditiya means matter, which is beyond spirit. Okay. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of the spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitiya, or the second. One who is absorbed in the second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. When one is fully convinced that he is not his body, there is no question of fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from the platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from a material body. The fear of death is the action of the Kala, or the time factor, which represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, time is destructive. Whatever is created is subject to destruction and dissolution, which is the action of time. Time is a representation of the Lord, and it reminds us also that we must surrender unto the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in the Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. We should therefore accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. That is further explained in the following verse.
Haribol. Okay, should we continue tomorrow from that part?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, now let's go to 6 Ashtakam prayers. Thank you so much for reading, Prabhu, and scrolling.
Thank you. Yeah. No problem.
चेतोदर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिकावितरणं विद्यावधूजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मस्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्तिस् तत्रार्पिता नियमितः स्मरणेन कालः एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन्ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशीं याजनि नानुरागः तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तने सदा हरिः न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवताद्भक्तिरहेतुकी त्वयि नैनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पद्मं मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कज सितधूळि सदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं गरदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदहृदया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं बभुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति युगायितं निमीषेण चक्षुषा प्रावृष्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे अश्लिष्य वा पादरतां पिनस्तु मां ब्रह्महतां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा यतातुलम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव नापरणः Let us glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by chanting your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh, Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service birth after birth. Oh, son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other, I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hair of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly in his embrace or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Sikshastakam ki jai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
Jai,
ki jai.
Jai.
Hita Gaur Pramanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Baujanma Karayadi Shavana Kirtan Tabutanapa Krishna Pade Premadan. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get the love of God. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. The 10 offenses against the holy name are as follows. The first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Second offense is to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu.
Third
Third
offense
offense is to
is disobey the orders of the spiritual master or consider him as an ordinary person.
Fourth offense is to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. Fifth
Fifth
offense is
offense.
to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Sixth offense, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
Seventh offense is to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord.
Eighth offense, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda.
Ninth offense is to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
Tenth offense, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा
कृपा
सिन्धुभ्यश्च
सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Nanda Gaudiya Vaishnava ki jai, Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari
हरि हरि
Bol.
बोल.
Thank you so much for association. Oh yes, Prabhu,
Thank
there's
you,
some
Prabhu.
Ayappa Tithi.
Sorry?
There's some Lord Ayappa.
Yeah. Can you please